I don't believe at that time there was any foul play, and I still don't. And I, regardless what happens, I will personally go to my grave feeling that there was no foul play, and that the people there were simply following policy and procedures and trying to do the best job they could do in handling and dealing with a very disturbed and a difficult resident to manage.
Governor could call a special session while the legislature is still in session. The meeting was scheduled at 2 o'clock. Well, when I was governor, I didn't say everything was going to be easy. 3 times with Senator York, Speaker Draper, and this week, I admit, let me just 180 degrees at opposite ends of the pole. I do not want to ask for permanent double selling if we're asking just to permanently double sell. On the other hand, I agree that we should not just ask for temporary double selling if that's our goal. What my goal is, and what I think the policy of the state of Oklahoma should be, is to have the opportunity permanently to double sell on a temporary basis whenever the need arises.
You wouldn't know it until you took a close look, but this is a low-security prison in residential Oklahoma City, where its residents learn to readjust. 18-year-old Devin Jackson has been in and out of correctional facilities the last 4 years, more recently convicted of second-degree burglary. Jackson wants to work and pay back the burglary victim with money instead of prison time through a restitution program.
Been all right with me if I'd pay restitution instead of coming to jail, you know. Taking up all this bed space in these places ain't doing me no good. And the people ain't getting paid back no way, just costing them tax money, you know, all that money.
Jackson says if the money comes out of his pocket, he would think twice before breaking the law again. Then there's Raulino Cabral, doing time for writing $1,400 worth of bogus checks. He also wants the opportunity to pay all the money back. For him, restitution is the answer.
I would have rather paid it back than come here. But I've been here 15 months, and they still haven't got the money. It would hurt us, and to me it would be a lesson.
One official talks about how state money could be better spent with the help of the restitution program.
Found one guy that had taken a $22 radio from Target, got a year for it, first offense. It seems excessive and a big cost to society. The same money that it takes to keep that person in the penitentiary could be spent on roads or schools.
Not all people convicted of crimes are eligible for the restitution program. Inmates feel the important thing is to be punished for wrongdoing, and restitution could help close the door on a life of crime. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Cape Bernard Treatment Center.
He doesn't or isn't forced into making a U-turn on what he promised to do for the American people. He's having some trouble. I'll be very pessimistic. And to lift the third year, as Jimmy Jones wants to do, would simply mean that we will have cut the top tax rates on capital by 30% and given the American people half of what we've given to business. I think that's a mistake, and that's unfair, and I don't think this president is going to allow it to happen.
The typical teacher in this state pulls in about $17,000 a year. Many of those teachers must pay stiff health insurance premiums out of their own pockets. Those premiums can reach $240 a month for a family plan. That's a big bite out of a teacher's budget.
Many school employees cannot afford health insurance. Increasing numbers of individuals are simply being forced to go without health insurance. So it is important that this crisis in health insurance be looked at.
The OEA wants the state to pick up teachers' health insurance premiums. That benefit would cost the state an estimated $28 million a year. Will Burton first-grade teacher Joe Jones thinks the insurance proposal is a good idea.
I know of two different families, well, not families, they are teachers, single teachers who have small children who are not covered because they cannot afford. They're first and second year teachers, and on their salary they cannot afford even a single policy, and much less a family policy. They just can't make it stretch, and they're without insurance. So if something happens to either the children or themselves, they're just wiped out.
The teachers admit it'll be an uphill battle to get their insurance premiums paid, so they plan to step up their lobbying efforts in order to convince state legislators to pass their plan. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
Last summer, the city's 900 public swimming pools underwent an inspection pool operators had never seen. Spawned by a couple of drownings, the public became concerned and cried out for more rigid enforcement of safety regulations. The inspections were tough. A number of the pools were shut down. This year, pool operators are being trained early on ways to keep their pools safe, so that when a team from the City County Health Department comes to inspect them, they'll pass with flying colors. The health department is providing the training.
If the pools are not inspected, they tend to slide downhill over a period of time. The safety standards are not kept up. The safety equipment maybe gets lost, broken, stolen. The gates and fences get an ill repair, and it just has to do basically with people being people. They tend to downhill slide a little bit.
Yes, you're going to have a continual contamination problem.
The turnout was good, and the department plans to hold several other seminars in May. And of course, there is something else that will help the City County Health Department, and that is the recent passage of the millage increase. That means the department will be able to increase its staff by 40%. And the inspectors will begin their scrutiny when pool season begins, Memorial Day. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the City County Health Department.
Where I think we need to go right now is to, number one, require that every licensing agency or every child adoption agency be licensed by the state. And the secondary, and this is the important requirement, require that every child that's adopted be adopted through a licensed adoption agency. And then the Department of Human Services can write and make some rules that will require the kind of considerations that we've discussed here and that you all have dealt with in your series. You all really are doing a good service here, and I mean that. Most of us, including myself, was not aware that there was a problem. And I think what you all are doing are helping all of us become aware of a problem of buying and selling kids.
"24 State Farm Bureau presidents and American Farm Bureau President Robert Delano went to Japan this month to seek greater market access for American farm products. Japan is our #1 customer. They buy a lot of corn and soybeans. However, Japan severely restricts other farm products such as beef and citrus." Oklahoma Farm Bureau President Jim Lockett was one of the agricultural leaders making the trip.
Our mission was to go over there and expound free trade and to back up Ambassador Brock and the other U.S. trade negotiators in their efforts to apply pressure and open up access to the Japanese markets for our products.
Do you feel your trip was successful?
Well, yes, I think certainly it was worth it. We won't know the outcome of it for some months yet.
Lockett says the message from the largest U.S. farm organization to Japan was clear. If the Japanese are to continue exporting cars, electronics, and other industrial goods to this country, then they are going to have to open up their markets to American farm products, which are now limited by trade barriers. If this comes about, it will be extremely beneficial to Oklahoma farmers. Ben McCain, Action 4.
These farmers are boarding their tractors, not to farm, but to fight. They're fighting mad over federal bankruptcy laws. Laws they say enhance the economic oppression of American farmers. Nationwide, grain elevators are going bankrupt, often leaving farmers with no grain and no money. These farmers near Billings are fighting the bankruptcy laws and are trying to help a friend, Wayne Christ, a Missouri farmer jailed after he took his grain from a bankrupt elevator.
Our complaint is that Wayne Christ's in jail over no fault of his own for removing his own property. And the yellow ribbons is because we consider him a hostage, just like the Iranian hostages were of a few years ago. And so this is our way of showing that we're for Wayne and that we're going to do everything we can to help him out.
The farmer's persistence in helping Christ is equaled by his determination not to tell government officials who helped him take his grain.
It's one thing to believe you're right, but when other people believe you're right and stand up with you, it just makes all the difference in the world.
The farmers are waiting and organizing. On Sunday, they'll caravan to Little Rock, Arkansas, to fight for new federal bankruptcy laws and their friends' freedom. Debbie Mash, Action 4, near Billings.
This 2-month-old baby has to be hooked up to a special monitor because at one point it stopped breathing and turned blue. It is a high risk for what is called sudden infant death syndrome, or crib death, as a lot of people know it. The newborn babies look healthy, act healthy, and display no unusual symptoms. Then suddenly, a couple of months later, they die. It turns out the babies did have something wrong with them, but it was so subtle it was never detected. Terry and Glenda Rowe had a little girl who died at only 4 months. They said the hardest thing for a parent to get over is the tremendous amount of guilt in thinking they did something wrong.
12 years later. But I think that's the most important thing, is to be able to let parents know that it was not the result of anything that they did, and that apparently, as of today, in medical science today, there is nothing that they could have done or could do now to prevent the death.
Dr. Henry Krause says Children's Hospital will be holding its 5th annual conference on sudden infant death syndrome this Friday. He hopes the conference will help parents like the Rose.
There are a number of risk factors that are known about these babies, risk factors that would place a baby at higher risk of sudden infant death syndrome than other babies would have. And through this educational format, we hope to provide that information.
This year, 116 babies in Oklahoma will die a crib death, 8,000 nationwide. The statistics are declining, and it's mainly because of new ways to monitor the newborn's behavior. But it's still the #1 killer for babies less than a year old. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at Children's Hospital.
Many of those people are students, many of them are educators who are available during that period of time. We have to pay them a reasonable rate of pay, or they'll go work for somebody else. If they do that, we can't provide that service. We can't keep the grass cut. We wouldn't have sufficient lifeguards at swimming pools, and all of those things that we do in the summer but don't do the rest of the year. I'm certain it's not going to solve all of our turnover problems, but we think it'll help.
That's not quite true. I said all along we'd get 110,000. We got 109,965, I think. I'm sorry. County, a little less than a third are from Tulsa, and almost exactly a third are from all. Significant if there's this much nonsense going.
Ask a question.
There are many other cases of blank lines challenged, duplicate challenges, the same signatures challenged twice and even 3 times. They have challenged signatures in 22 Oklahoma counties in which they have not even set foot to date.
There is no need for thanks for our gift. The pleasure is all mine and my wife's. It's to thank you and to thank Oklahoma for my family, for my friends.
When industrial water users take water from fire hydrants, there is supposed to be a flow meter attached to the hydrant. This allows the city to know how much water is being used and how much to charge the business. But some people are stealing water, and in the process they are also stripping the cap on the hydrant by using pipe wrenches. City officials think most of the stolen water is going to oil drilling related companies. To fight back, the city is spending more than $9,000 for specially designed water hydrant caps.
So we're hoping that these caps will be enough of a nuisance to a water thief that they will not attempt it. We're going to put the caps on a trial basis on Reno and 10th Street all the way out to the western edge of the city water system.
Officials are quick to point out that most oil drilling operations do abide by the law when using city water. No one knows exactly how much money was lost as a result of the stolen water, but the city does hope water theft will soon be a thing of the past. Ed Stewart, Action 4, Northwest Oklahoma City. Some street workers felt they were digging themselves in a hole impossible to get out of. Many of the employees say their work rules carry a double standard, one for them and one for their supervisors. And when they tried to get out of what was termed a day-to-day rut, they say punishments were handed down, which included being docked pay for something a supervisor got away with, even though city rules apply to all employees despite the job title.
Okay.
City workers say a recent meeting has helped bridge the gap between workers and their supervisors.
They were complaining about inability to communicate through their immediate supervisors to management in the division, and also about two specific work rules. So we have learned that that the rule was not being enforced quite accurately, and have made some changes there.
Johnson says he doesn't think that one meeting between the street workers and the city is going to solve all the problems. But he says as long as both sides do try to communicate, the situation is bound to improve. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at City Hall.
We have in our Navy the capability of anti-air. We have surface missiles and we have air-launched missiles and this sort of thing. It really comes down to the training and the capability of your sailors and your Marines. In the hands of a properly trained person, we could have negated what happened in that particular case. As close as they were to the shore base, they should have been able to detect that aircraft as it took off. Needless to say, 21 miles out. I can't really answer the question more than that because there's a lot of facts that we really don't know sitting back here in the comfort of Oklahoma City. But I can say with some assurance that aboard a modern naval vessel, that sort of thing, the probability is very low that something like that could happen to one of our ships in our modern fleet.
Whitaker is pretty
3 months
strict.
ago,
It's run
investigator
like a
William
penitentiary.
Traynor read to the Senate subcommittee hair-raising depositions taken from students who lived in state-run juvenile institutions. The statements detailed alleged physical and sexual abuse of the students. But state welfare officials complained that they weren't allowed to tell their side of the story. They'll have that opportunity May 26th and 27th. 5 welfare department officials have received invitations to appear before the Senate subcommittee investigating the abuse charges. The senators wanted to question welfare department boss Lloyd Rader, his executive assistant Vera Alder, Chase Gordon, DHS assistant counsel, who formerly supervised the Division of Institutions and Community Service, David Schaefer, accreditation coordinator, and John Lietka, assistant advocate general.
There is a question of whether or not the witnesses will appear voluntarily or under subpoena. Certain members who have been requested to attend are somewhat reluctant to go without a subpoena because they are concerned that this is not going to be a fair and objective hearing and that we're not going to be fairly treated.
What is Mr. Rader's response to this invitation?
He has not made any decision as to whether or not he will request a subpoena. And I'm sure if he's subpoenaed, he'll honor it.
The Welfare Department is expected to formally respond to the invitations by noon tomorrow. Scott Wallace, Action 4 at the State Human Services Department.
The tornado that went through Friendship Monday night chewed up homes and spit out parts all over the landscape. It plowed through barns and plastered their remains all over the countryside. There's an old saying that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, but never has a scorned woman shown the wrath of a tornado. The people of Friendship began cleaning up at daybreak, but by early afternoon, they had hardly made a dent in removing the rubble left by Mother Nature. Greg Ray had a mobile home in this trailer park. Ray had been at work at nearby Altus Air Force Base Tuesday night, but his wife was at home.
Yeah, she was holding on to the living room floor, which was right over there, and she said she remembers being lifted up in the air and spinning around, and she woke up over in that area somewhere.
Cynthia Ray is doing well in an Altus hospital, but she was 3 months pregnant, and doctors don't know if her baby will survive. Until last night, there was a mobile home on this site. Rhonda Price lived here with her 4-year-old niece, Susan Cook. As the tornado approached, they ran out of the house and towards that brick home behind me. They never made it.
There's another one.
Butch Atchley was one of several men helping to find the property that belonged to Rhonda Price. Every few minutes, extra pennies, nickels, and dimes were placed in a pile. Rhonda Price is survived by a 4-year-old son, Steve, and the money will go to him. Atchley found this sign that added a touch of black humor to the day. It may be good advice, but good advice isn't easy to accept after a tornado hits. Bill Ross, Action 4 in Friendship, Oklahoma.
Most of the cars on the Altus Air Force Base look like this morning, totally demolished after a tornado came through and wiped out half the base. The cars were a big concern, yes, but the planes were also a big concern. Many of the planes suffered some heavy damage. These cargo planes were all facing straight ahead in one direction before the tornado hit them. Work crews are spending hours trying to assess the damage. The twister forced grounded planes into each other and turned some aircraft completely around. Control towers, like many other buildings on the air base, had all its windows shattered. Somehow the towers managed to remain standing despite powerful winds. A base photographer braved the storm to take these pictures of the tornado. The photographs clearly show the narrow distance between the planes and one of the twisters. Base officials are confident the cargo planes will be back in good shape soon. Just on the other side of the base, barracks for 1,200 enlisted men and women were closed down because of damage. There were several injuries reported, but no fatalities. Officials say a temporary housing problem was solved in no time.
It wasn't too long. The National Guard Armory opened up. That was available, the gymnasium, the motels downtown, and local community opened up their own homes. No, that was, sure there was a problem, getting people there, the management of that, but no, that was taken care of.
Perhaps if any one spot on the base was hit hardest, it would have to be the service station. Here the tornado crushed half the building. Everything inside was buried under bricks and steel. Digging out belongings from under the debris was not going to be an easy task. Some employees were working inside the station when the tornado struck. They say escaping unharmed was nothing short of a miracle.
I never prayed so much in my life.
This was the only gas station on base. No one has determined how much it will cost to rebuild from all the destruction. People living here only hope they won't become another tornado target. Ed Stewart, Action 4 at the Altus Air Force Base.